The atmosphere around Philadelphia today feels different, and not in the usual way that off-season news tends to hit. This is not a rumor that will quietly fade or a speculative headline meant to fill space between games. This is a real change with real impact. One that immediately forces the Eagles to adjust their plans and rethink part of the foundation they have been building on defense. As the organization navigates an off-season filled with high expectations, one important figure from the coaching staff is officially moving on, and the destination only adds more weight to the situation. Christian Parker, who had been serving as the defensive backs coach and the defensive pass game coordinator, is no longer part of the Eagles coaching staff. He is heading to Dallas to take on the role of defensive coordinator, stepping into a position that comes with pressure, scrutiny, and enormous responsibility within the division. Moves like this always feel personal. But beyond the rivalry aspect, this is a decision that directly affects how Philadelphia's defense will look, feel, and function moving forward. From a league-wide perspective, the timing of this move makes sense. Dallas was clearly searching for answers after a season where their defense failed to meet expectations on multiple levels. They struggled to generate consistent pressure. Coverage breakdowns became a recurring theme, and communication issues were evident week after week. Opposing offenses found ways to exploit mismatches, especially in critical moments, and the lack of cohesion became impossible to ignore. For Dallas, standing still was not an option, and turning to a younger coach with a reputation for development signals a desire to change direction rather than recycle old ideas. For Philadelphia, however, the reaction is very different. This is not just about losing a position coach. This is about losing someone who played a central role in shaping one of the strongest units on the roster. Over the past 2 seasons, the Eagles' secondary transformed from a potential concern into a clear strength, and that evolution did not happen by chance. Young defensive backs stepped into demanding roles early in their careers and performed with confidence, discipline, and consistency. That level of growth speaks directly to coaching quality. Christian Parker's influence was felt daily on the practice field and on game days. His role went beyond teaching technique. He was deeply involved in how the Eagles defended the pass as a whole, helping to design concepts, adjust coverages, and prepare players for specific matchups when the defense faced elite quarterbacks and high-powered offenses. The secondary consistently held up, often dictating terms rather than reacting. That type of performance reflects preparation and clarity, not just raw talent. The development of Quinyon Mitchell stands out as a defining example. From the beginning of his professional career, there was an immediate sense of comfort in his game. He did not look overwhelmed by the speed or complexity of the league. Instead, he lined up against top-level receivers and competed with confidence. Early road games, hostile environments, and high-pressure situations did not seem to faze him. As the season progressed, his growth accelerated, and by his second year he was no longer just a promising young player, but one of the most reliable defenders on the field. That kind of leap rarely happens without strong guidance. Young defensive backs are often targeted by opposing offenses, especially early in their careers. Mistakes are expected and learning curves can be steep. Yet Mitchell showed advanced awareness, strong positioning, and consistent technique from the start. Those traits are built through repetition, detailed coaching, and trust between player and coach. Parker's fingerprints were all over that process. The same pattern could be seen with Cooper DeJean, another young player who quickly became a key contributor. He adapted to the system, understood his responsibilities, and played with a level of poise that belied his experience. Together, these players formed the backbone of a secondary that was not just statistically impressive, but situationally dominant. In critical moments, they made plays, limited explosive gains, and helped close out games against top competition. That reliability carried all the way to the biggest stage. When the Eagles faced an elite offense in the Super Bowl, the performance of the secondary played a major role in controlling the flow of the game. Coverage held up, communication stayed sharp, and the defense forced difficult throws rather than giving up easy opportunities. Achieving that level of execution requires more than a good scheme. It requires players who believe in what they are being taught and trust the preparation behind it. Inside the locker room, Parker earned respect quickly and consistently. Players spoke openly about his impact, crediting him for their improvement and confidence. When athletes are willing to publicly acknowledge a coach's influence, it usually reflects genuine appreciation rather than scripted praise. Those relationships matter. especially in a position group where confidence and mental preparation are just as important as physical ability. Looking at his broader background, Parker's rise was never sudden. Before arriving in Philadelphia, he had already been part of environments that prioritized development and accountability. He worked with established stars and emerging talents, learning how to tailor his approach to different personalities and skill sets. Coaches with that blend of experience and adaptability tend to attract attention quickly, and it was only a matter of time before an opportunity like this emerged. Even so, the timing creates challenges for the Eagles. Replacing a defensive backs coach is one thing. Replacing someone who also coordinated the defensive pass game adds another layer of complexity. That responsibility touches multiple parts of the defense. From coverage rules to communication between position groups, it forces the organization to think carefully about continuity, especially with a roster that leans heavily on young talent in the secondary. Stability has been one of the quiet strengths of this defense. Clear messaging, consistent standards, and a shared understanding of expectations allowed players to grow without constantly adjusting to new voices or philosophies. Losing a key figure disrupts that rhythm, even if the system itself remains intact. Maintaining that balance will be one of the most important tasks facing the coaching staff this offseason. The Eagles now find themselves at a crossroads where every decision carries weight. Internal options may provide familiarity and continuity, while external candidates could bring fresh ideas and different perspectives. Each path comes with trade-offs, and there is little margin for error when expectations are as high as they are in Philadelphia. The defense is no longer trying to prove itself, it is trying to sustain excellence, which is often an even greater challenge. This departure also comes amid broader coaching movement around the league, which complicates the search process. As other teams fill head coaching and coordinator positions, the pool of available candidates shifts constantly. Opportunities elsewhere can quickly pull coaches in different directions, creating a competitive environment where timing and clarity become critical. Philadelphia is operating within that same landscape, where patience and decisiveness must coexist. What makes this moment feel heavier than a typical off-season change is the sense that something valuable has been removed from a well-functioning system. Christian Parker was not just a coach filling a role, he was part of the structure that allowed the Eagles' secondary to reach its current level. Replacing that influence is about more than matching credentials. It is about finding someone who can connect with players, reinforce standards, and keep the unit moving forward without losing its identity. As the organization begins to map out its next steps, the focus will remain on protecting what has already been built. The young defensive backs who flourished under Parker now carry added responsibility, not just to perform, but to help uphold the culture and habits that drove their development. How the Eagles handle this transition will say a lot about the strength of the foundation they believe they have in place. As this transition unfolds, the Eagles are being forced to confront a familiar reality that comes with sustained success. When a team builds a reputation for developing talent and competing at the highest level, it does not only attract attention from opponents on the field, but also from organizations looking to reshape their own futures off it. Coaching staffs become targets, and assistants who were once flying under the radar suddenly become highly valued assets across the league. Philadelphia is now dealing with that reality once again. The challenge ahead is not rooted in panic, but in precision. The Eagles do not need to overhaul their defensive philosophy or abandon what has worked. The identity of this defense has already been established through discipline, versatility, and accountability. The task now is finding the right voice to carry that identity forward. Someone who understands that the standard has already been set, and that maintaining it requires consistency. As much as creativity, one of the most delicate parts of this process is managing the human element inside the building. Defensive backs rooms are built on trust, communication, and repetition. Players rely heavily on clear instruction and honest feedback, especially when facing constant scrutiny from opposing offenses that are always searching for weaknesses. A sudden change in leadership can disrupt that rhythm if it is not handled carefully. The Eagles will need to ensure that whoever steps into this role can establish credibility quickly without forcing unnecessary changes. There is also the reality that expectations around this secondary have shifted dramatically. This is no longer a unit that surprises teams with its growth. It is one that opponents actively game plan around. Quarterbacks hesitate longer, routes are adjusted, and offensive coordinators are forced to account for coverage strength before dialing up aggressive concepts. That level of respect changes the weekly dynamic, and it places additional pressure on coaching to stay one step ahead. Young players who benefited from strong guidance now face a new phase of their development. With early success comes higher standards and greater responsibility. Mistakes are scrutinized more closely, and consistency becomes the defining factor between being good and being elite. The next coach must be capable of pushing these players further without eroding the confidence that allowed them to flourish in the first place. At the same time, the Eagles' front office must balance short-term continuity with long-term vision. Promoting from within can preserve language, structure, and familiarity, which often helps smooth transitions. However, internal candidates must also be prepared to command a room and lead a group that now sees itself as one of the best in the league. Respect is not automatic, even in familiar surroundings. It has to be reinforced daily through preparation and results. External candidates bring a different kind of appeal. New perspectives can challenge established habits and introduce refinements that keep a defense evolving as offenses around the league adapt. The risk, of course, is change for the sake of change. The Eagles are not in a position where experimentation is necessary. They are in a position where refinement is the goal. Any outside hire would need to demonstrate a clear understanding of that distinction. This decision also cannot be isolated from the rest of the coaching staff. Defensive football is interconnected, and the secondary does not operate independently from the pass rush or linebacker play. Communication across position groups is essential, especially when adjusting the motion, tempo, and complex route combinations. The Eagles must consider how this hire fits within the broader defensive structure and how responsibilities will be shared moving forward. Meanwhile, the broader league landscape continues to shift. Coaching movement elsewhere creates a constantly changing market, where opportunities open and close quickly. Teams with quarterback stability and playoff expectations tend to be more attractive landing spots. And Philadelphia still checks those boxes. That gives the organization leverage. But it also raises expectations. Top candidates will expect clarity, alignment, and a genuine opportunity to succeed, rather than a temporary solution. There is also a psychological layer to losing a respected coach to a division rival, even if players and staff understand the business side of the league. Emotions do not simply disappear. Seeing a familiar face on the opposite sideline adds motivation, but it can also sharpen focus internally. The Eagles will be eager to prove that their defensive success was not dependent on a single individual, but on a collective standard embedded throughout the organization. For Dallas, the move represents optimism and ambition. They believe they have identified someone capable of correcting flaws that plague their defense and unlocking the potential of players who have not yet reached expected levels. Whether that belief translates into results remains to be seen, but the intent is clear. They are betting on growth, teaching, and adaptability. That gamble adds another layer of intrigue to future matchups within the division. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. The NFL rumor mill is heating up, and this time, the speculation centers on one of the league's most electrifying wide receivers. ESPN sources are reportedly confirming that Terry McLaurin, the standout star from the Washington Commanders, could be on his way to the Philadelphia Eagles. While nothing is official yet, the potential move has sent shockwaves through both fan bases, sparking debates, social media frenzy, and a flurry of what-if scenarios for the upcoming season. McLaurin has long been recognized for his ability to make defenders miss, stretch the field, and deliver in clutch moments. His speed, agility, and route-running prowess have made him a cornerstone of the Commanders' offense. And he's consistently ranked among the league's top receivers in terms of yardage and big play potential. A move to the Eagles would place him alongside one of the NFL's most dynamic rosters, potentially reshaping the team's passing game and adding a new dimension to their offensive strategy. Fans and analysts are already speculating how McLaurin would fit into Philadelphia's system. Could he become the go-to target for a quarterback hungry for a deep threat? Would his presence open up opportunities for other receivers and tight ends? The possibilities are tantalizing, and even casual observers are weighing in on social media with heated discussions. Some see this as the missing piece the Eagles need to elevate their offense to championship contention, while others caution that any big acquisition comes with risk chemistry, contract negotiations, and injuries are all factors that could influence the outcome. Sources suggest that talks between the teams have been discreet but serious, with management reportedly evaluating options that could make the trade feasible, while the specifics of any deal remain under wraps. Insiders say that both sides are motivated by the potential upside, with the Commanders looking to leverage McLaurin's value and the Eagles aiming to reinforce an already potent lineup. Regardless of the final outcome, the rumor has already ignited excitement across the league. Terry McLaurin's next move is shaping up to be one of the most talked about stories in football. And if this trade materializes, it could redefine the landscape of the NFC East. Fans are advised to buckle up. The offseason just got a whole lot more interesting. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.